Hello and welcome back, guys. So in today's video we're gonna practice building a simple social media social networking site using everything we have learned about JavaScript. So we'll make a mini database, we'll make a sign up form, we'll make a list of recent uploads and all those things that a social media website should have. So first of all, let me open this HTML file I have made, and I have attached it to this JavaScript file. Okay, go to inspect within console so we can see, and I'm going to minimize it so they're side by side, so it's easier for us to see everything that is happening and changing. So we're going to start by making a database. So think about this step by step. First thing, what should a database of a social media website, like Instagram, Facebook, these things, or what should they have? So it's a database, and usually a database has a list of users. And okay, it's a list, but in every user, what are the two pieces of information that helps a website differentiate between users? It's the username and the password. So those can be objects. In one object you can have a username and a password. So it's a list of objects, right? So it's an array because it's a list, and then inside this array we have objects. So the first object can be, say, user name. Let's do Mike, and password for Mike is 12345. Yes, and then sorry, we can have a second user just in case. We can say username is to Mary and password is to 54321. I know, very smart, super safe over here. So yeah, this will be your database. These are the two users that are available on this site. Okay, what else do we need? Now, once you have logged in, once these users have logged in, they should be able to see something, right? So what should they see should be the username and maybe, let's say, the status that has been updated by the users. So I'm gonna call it recent status, which is also an array, and this array will have I want to keep it a little bit back. Okay, this array will have objects inside it, and those objects will have property of usernames. So let's say username can be John, and John's status is learning JavaScript. And then we have another user. Let's call this user what? Sorry. Username. We have Chris, and the status of this user is going for a walk. There. So we have our database, and we have a database that has username and password, and then once we have logged in, we also have recent statuses of the users. Next up, when you go onto a site, now that we have the two important pieces of information that this site should have, we need to create a flow, like how will you see these pieces of information? So when you go to a site, what is the first thing that happens? First of all, they ask you for the username and password, right? We have already made that, as you saw in our course earlier, using prompt. So we will use variable username prompt, which will be equals to prompt, please input username. And there needs to be another variable that will be called password prompt, which will say prompt, please input password. Okay, so now when we enter this website, it will ask us username, it will ask us password, and if our username and password are the one of these two, you know, in the database, we should be able to see this information. So for all of this, this sounds like a function, right? The function this website should perform once we enter it. So we need to write a function. So let's write a function. Well, this function will obviously be called a sign in function because we are signing in. I mean, we can name it anything. I just think sign in makes sense because we're performing the function of signing in. So it's a sign in function, and this sign in function will receive two values. It will receive username and it will receive a password. Now I'm just putting username and password over here for better understanding. It doesn't really matter what you put over here. You can put password, you can put vegetables, you can put fruits, it doesn't matter. It just says that this function will be receiving two values. What you name them really doesn't matter because these will be dynamic and they will change based on what we type. But I'm just putting username and password so it looks, it's easier to understand. Okay, now let's write a function. So thinking about it, we are saying that if when you enter this website, if the username that we enter is equals to what? So if this username, that whatever we have entered, is equals to database, in the database, the first value dot username and password is equal to database, the first value in database dot, I'm going to put this on the second line, dot password. I think the periods cannot be separate, so I'm going to put this on the second line as well. I'm going to put this back. Okay, so we're saying if username equals to the username over here inside this variable, inside database, 0 means the first one. This is 0, this is 1. So we're saying if username equals to this username and password equals to this password, but now you're gonna write or if the username equals to database 1 dot username and password equals to database 1 dot password. So if this happens, what we want you to do is we want you to console.log the recent status. Else, if this is not the case, we want you to display an alert message saying wrong username or password. Simple. Done. So our function is ready now. All we need to do is just call it. So all we have to do now is just call the function. So we're going to call sign-in function, which will be taking two values inside it. We will be calling username prompt, and we will be calling password prompt along with sign-in. Done. Now this should work when we go over here. So let's refresh it and let's see. Just make sure after writing all of this code, you have linked it. Okay, refresh. Yes. Please input username. So let's go with Mike first. Okay. Password 12345. Okay. There. It displays us two things. Okay. Username John. Status is learning JavaScript. Username Chris. Status is going for a walk. It works. Let's refresh. Let's see if Mary and 54321. Again, we have logged in. We have our array of these two objects. John is learning JavaScript. Chris is going for a walk. Now let's do the third scenario where we put something wrong. So let's say we put Mike, but we use Mary's login. Wrong username or password. So it all works. Basically, this is it. This is how all those complex websites, you know, their sign-up forms and their functionalities are built code by code, bracket by bracket. I mean, they don't usually, they never actually, they never build their own database like we have built over here. That's a whole separate topic we will get into later parts when we get into the Node.js section of this course. But right now, just to explain it to you guys how it works, this is how it works. So just in short, let me just explain you guys, let's just review the code together. So first of all, we made a database because, you know, the website you have should store all of its users. Now that since it stores its users, it's a list, and arrays are best for making lists. But it's not a list of only one value. Usually you have two values, you know, username and password. Sometimes you even have emails. So you need to differentiate, and when you have more than one value, objects are very good. So when you think about it, it's basically a list of objects. So we created that with username Mike, password blah blah blah, then username Mary, password blah blah blah. After this, we made you know, something that our users should be able to see when they log in. So what do you see when you log in? I just thought that, okay, you see the username and you see their status. So we made a list of that. And finally, we decided to make two commands that, like, when you enter a page, what should be the first thing that you are asked? You should be asked, put in your password and put in your username so that you can log in and access the information. Now, after we had these three blocks ready, we needed to put them in a code in such a way that they perform a function. So that function, we built that function, was called sign-in function, that took two values. And then that function said if the username that we are entering is equals to this username, the first one, and this password, or if the username and password we are entering is equals to this one, then console.log the statuses over here. The recent status is this thing. But else, if there is any mistake over here, just show an alert message that says wrong username or password. And then because it's a function, we just call the function. So that's it for this video. In the next video, we will get into more detail about JavaScript and some advanced functions. Make sure to like and subscribe if you like our content, and because these are all ongoing courses, so you can, you know, keep up with the course. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video.